Hello and welcome to La Rosa Reads. I'm Denise La Rosa and today I'm going to share all of my April reads with you. Let's talk books. So April was an interesting reading month. I would say I felt content. I had a steady, consistently good reading experience. Not super high highs, but also not any duds. So I'm excited to share those reads with you right now. The first fiction book that I read in April was titled The Cat Who Saved Books. This read fulfills my goal of reading at least 5 translated fiction works. This is my second translated fiction piece of literature for the year, so I'm moving along. And I have to tell you guys, this was a very cozy, introspective book. I enjoyed reading about this young man who is a high schooler, a senior, who unfortunately loses his grandfather. His grandfather was the owner of this very interesting, quirky bookstore, and when he passed away, that left our main character with no relatives other than his aunt who lived far away, and he felt alone, and the bookstore would have to shut down. But a cat nearby, a talking cat, had other plans, and so this talking cat comes into the bookstore, lures our main character into some adventures to save some books, and each adventure has an aha moment, a moment of appreciation, respect, and celebration of books. Being a book lover, taking care of books. What does it mean to love books? What does it mean to consume books? Why do we consume books? All of those things are fleshed out in these experiences, and it was fun. I think it was a solid 3-star for me. I wasn't like swept away by it, but it was a good time. So I'm glad that I read The Cat Who Saved Books. A book that wasn't on my TBR but landed in my hands is a book titled Other Words for Home. This book by Jasmine Warga is a middle grade novel. It is written in verse, and it is one that just totally swept me away. It was so endearing. Our main character was one who had a little bit of spunk and vulnerability. She was just a very complicated, nuanced character, and I loved how it was written in verse. It was so moving. So our main character has to suddenly leave her home with her pregnant mother, leaving her older brother and her father behind. And they end up temporarily living with her uncle, who has been in America for quite some time, in a swanky home in America, in Ohio. And she is forced to grapple with, what does it mean to be who I am, who I've always known myself to be. She really has to come to terms with what does it mean to be the young woman that she is. Jude has never thought of herself being a Syrian young woman as being other, right? But in America, in this small town in America, she is very much a minority, and, wearing her hijab has people staring at her and looking at her differently. And yet, this is an opportunity for her and her mother to live out the American dream. So she feels tugged and pulled between these two feelings of, feeling othered, but also feeling like she should feel very fortunate to have this opportunity to live in America. My favorite quote from the book is the following: "Americans love labels. They help them know what to expect. Sometimes, though, I think labels stop them from thinking." That's deep. And so true. I highly recommend this book for all readers, young and old. And I was all up in my middle grade vibes because then I transitioned to From the Desk of Zoe Washington by Janae Marks. This was also another book that wasn't necessarily on my TBR, but both of these books jumped out at me from the library at my school where I work. And I thought to myself, these books have been on my TBR for a while. It is high time that I read them, and I'm so glad I did. Zoe Washington was just a lovely young woman to follow. Her journey was very it was told in a very simplistic way, but there was enough, nuance in her story as well that I think is really an opportunity for young readers to explore identity yet again, just like with Other Words for Home. And with Zoe, she is living with her mother and her stepfather. She is a Black girl. Her mother is Black. Her stepfather is white. Giving you the context here. Her grandmother is nearby. Her birth father, her biological father, is incarcerated. She never met him because, unfortunately, he was arrested, found guilty of a crime of murder before she was born. She ends up on her 12th birthday having communication with her father for the first time via a letter in the mail. And this sends her off on a journey of self-exploration, of learning about people who are wrongfully accused of crimes and incarcerated for crimes that they did not commit. And so she is determined to free her father, get him out of jail, form a relationship with him, and also win a baking contest because she loves to bake. So you've got some light, airy moments like that about this young girl who's just wanting to try to figure out her friendships and, go like compete in a baking contest. And then she's dealing with some heavier stuff as well. I thought it was beautifully done. I love this quote that says, "They made Marcus, Zoe's father, sound guilty, even though he said he is innocent. But Grandma said things aren't as simple as black and white. What if the truth wasn't either?" Ain't that the truth, girl? I'm glad I read from the desk of Zoe Washington. And because Finley Donovan Rolls the Dice came out, it was released, I had to back it up because I had only read the first 2 books in the series, Finley Donovan is Killing It, and Finley Donovan Knocks Him Dead. So I had to read Finley Donovan Jumps the Gun, and I did just that. I wasn't looking forward to reading this book. I just wanted to read it to get through it so that I could be prepared for book 4. I had heard enough poor reviews for Finley Donovan fans that Finley Donovan Jumps the Gun was meh. There was really no movement, no forward movement, no closing of, loose ends that we needed closed. It just was whatever. We got through it to get to the book 4. That's fine. So we've got Finley and Vero. They end up being in a police academy for citizens to learn about what it's like to be a police officer. They do this in hopes of finding out who Easy Clean is. Easy Clean is this contracted killer that the Russian mob wants to find and erase. And they have told Finley Donovan she is the girl who's going to discover Easy Clean. They think Easy Clean is a dirty cop. Whatevs. You hear me, right? Like, this is just far-fetched. It's kind of like, okay, the story happens. We're done. I'm done with it. Like, I would only recommend that you read this if you want to continue on with the series. I wouldn't say read this because it's a great time. Now, Vero and Finlay are always fun to be with, spend time with as characters, but whatever. It was like a 2.5 read for me. I'm just glad to get through it so that I could then read Veronica Ruiz Breaks the Bank, which was my next book that I read, or I should say listened to. So us Finley Donovan fans really are here for Vero at this point. I think it's safe to say most of us are. Vero is Finlay's sidekick and nanny to Finlay's 2 children, and I just love her so much. I think her character is hilarious. I think her character is just what we need for comic relief and like to be the brains behind everything. I just think she's just so fun to spend time with. And so there were some unanswered questions and some wonderings after reading Finley Donovan Jumps the Gun. I think the most that came out of that for me was just asking myself some questions about what is Vero's relationship with Javi and what happened with Vero that she ended up, becoming a nanny and like running away from college because she had a warrant out for her arrest for embezzling money. I just wanted to know more about her. And so we learn a little bit more about her in this very short novel, Veronica Ruiz Breaks the Bank. It was fine. I think it was actually a little boring, a little dull for Vero's personality and her character. But it did help us learn more about Vero, and I think that sets us up nicely for book 4. So I don't want to go into too many details with these books because you've got to be a fan of the series, and then I'll share more. If you have never read the series, you better go back to book 1 and see if it's for you. I don't know. Book 1 is fine by itself, but you may want to read more. And if so, we can talk about it one-on-one. Then I read 3 nonfiction books in April, and I enjoyed each one for very different reasons. This book that I read, titled The Garden Within, Where the War with Your Emotions Ends and Your Most Powerful Life Begins, is written by Dr. Anita Phillips, and it fulfills the Buzzwordathon's Buzzword of the Month for April, which was about the earth, nature, and so I thought garden would be a good fit. This is a Christian and psychological combination. We have science and spiritual coming together to help us understand our emotions and how to navigate them using the garden and gardening as a concept to explain our emotions and how we navigate those emotions. I found it to be profound. I found some wonderful pearls of wisdom, some scriptural references. If you do not identify as a Christian, if that is not something that is of interest to you, don't read this book. It is closely tied to the Christian faith. So if that is an identity that you share with me and one that you want to further explore while thinking along the lines of mental and emotional health, I highly encourage that you listen to this book. I listened to it and it was really powerful to go on walks and listen to Dr. Anita Phillips. It was really one of the most profound and powerful reads that I've had in a very long time. Definitely check it out if it's something that you think will be of interest to you. St. Martin's Press gifted me this ARC, this advanced reader's copy of a book that I was highly anticipating this year, and I am so grateful that I won this in the Goodreads giveaway. Yes, real people do win those. I finally won, you guys, and I won a winner with The Soundtrack of Silence, written by Matt Hay. This is the subtitle is Love, Loss, and a Playlist for Life. Matt Hay just captured my heart from the beginning. I could tell this was a Midwestern guy that had Midwestern charm, had a wonderful combination of an endearing, loving personality and a little bit of, comedy attached to it, which Lord knows he needed it because this guy at a very young age was losing his hearing unbeknownst to him. Think about us 70s and 80s kids who would see the nurse wheel in the cart for the hearing test, and you would take the hearing test and it would be like, raise your hand if you hear this sound or that sound. And he learned how to kind of cheat that test, but he didn't realize that he was needing to do that because he was losing his hearing. He always heard things differently than the average person. And unfortunately for him, by the time he graduated high school and was looking to go on to college, he realized that he had a very rare disease, a very rare diagnosis of NF2, and that he was ultimately going to completely lose his hearing. And so he asked himself, if I'm going to never hear music again, what are some songs that I want to have so seared in my memory that I can always hear them in my heart, in my spirit? So he talks about music in that way. He also talks about music in terms of like finding songs that connect with certain moments in his life where he had joys and challenges. He talks about his wife, Nora, so much, the love of his life, who really stuck by him through all of this and continues to stand by him and support him. And so I just appreciated how he took music and gave it life to explain and express what his experience was like. It was breathtaking, so deeply moving. I am so thankful that I got a chance to read this book. So thank you, St. Martin's Press, and thank you, Matt Hay, for sharing your truth. Y'all, this book, I went out to the bookstore in 2018. I believe it was in November. I just remember it was cold and wintry. Like the day this book came out, as soon as I left work, I went straight to the store to get this book, and it remained on my shelves, and I didn't pick it up until April 2024. And it is Becoming by Michelle Obama. Yeah. So I'm late to the party, but I made it to the party. And you guys, I am a huge, huge, huge believer in learning from everyone. I read books by political figures and their spouses across like political lines. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. We have to understand that only a small number of human beings on this earth know what it's like to be a First Lady of the United States of America, to know what it's like to be the President of the United States of America. And I am just always so deeply interested in getting into the hearts and minds of those people and hearing their story from their own words, their own mouths, because we as Americans, as people in the world, are seeing it through one lens, through television and the media. They lived it. So for that reason, this book was great. I actually listened to the audiobook, and Michelle Obama was very relatable, very real, very authentic in sharing her truth. I really have to say my favorite moment of this book, my favorite part was when she was talking about how she and Barack Obama were new young parents and how she was, I don't want to say being a single mom, but how she had to carry 80% of the parenting load because of Barack's schedule. And as someone who has a husband who works a very unique schedule that kind of leaves a lot of the parenting to me, it was so relatable. And the way she explained it gave care to both parents. And you could understand how challenging that could be. I enjoyed, really, quite frankly, all the stuff before the White House more than I did the White House stuff. But, this is a woman who has made history being the first African-American First Lady. And she did it with grace, with poise, with authenticity and love. And I just really appreciate and respect her for it. Yes, I see why this book is beloved by so many people. I definitely am now one of those people as well. So there you have it, my friends. All of my April reads. What did you read in April? Let your girl know. And also, find out what I'm reading in May, because your girl has already made some reading plans. Check out that May TBR video. And until next time, happy reading. Bye!